Hello, my name's Karina Thompson, and in this film I'm going to be introducing you to the Express Monogram wizard in the mySewnet embroidery software. If you're a subscriber or an owner of the mySewnet embroidery software, or just interested in digital embroidery, please subscribe to our channel, and that way you'll never miss out on any of our films. So I'm on the home page. Now, if I go to the Create tab, you can see that it says Express Monogram here. You can get to this from the Welcome page as well, but I'm going to click on this button here and this will open up the wizard. So this is the opening page of the Monogram wizard. Let me talk you through some of the options. So to start off with, if you actually pull on this little arrow here, this gives you all the different types of combinations of letters to make your monogram. So for instance, if you wanted to, you could have a single letter, you could have two letters, both full size, you could have a small letter and a larger letter, or you can kind of have combinations of a couple of full scale letters and full and small scale. So in actual fact, what I'm going to suggest for today, I am going to work with this combination, okay, and I am going to use my own initials. Now, one of the problems that I've got is I haven't got a middle name, so I'm going to put X. So Karina, spell my name with a K, X, and then I am going to put T in here. And again, you can see that you can have a combination of uppercase or lowercase. And it might be you say, that's great, perfect, happy to stitch that out, in which case you could hit finish and then either export it or send it via mySewnet to your machine. Job done. How quick was that? But it might also be that you say, well, Karina, let me just actually get stuck in there. Let's have a look at what other potential I've got. So for instance, if I pull down on this little arrow here, you will see that there are literally dozens of different combinations that you could choose on how you would like those three letters to be organized. And you can have them slanted, you can have them angled, you can have it enveloped, but for the purpose of this demonstration I'm actually going to go with this sort of straight diagonal in here. And again, you might say, it's great, Karina, and in that case you can hit finish and off you go. But what I also want to do is talk about some of these other tabs up here. So if I click on full letter here, you can see that the full letters, the big letters in this case are trellis. Now again, if I click on the little arrow down here, that opens up the font, all the fonts on here, and you can see you could choose any of those over 250 fonts in here, but I know which one that I'm going to go for. I'm going to go for this floral one here. Because I really like what happens with this, these acorns, these curly acorns around the T. Okay, so again, you might say, great, if you wanted to, you could change those colour values if they aren't quite what you want, but I'm happy with that. Let's talk about this second tab here. So this is the small letter tab, and again, just like before, you can click on here and choose another font from the many fonts that are in here, and in this case I am going to go with the Corinthian X on here. And let me tell you about what's going on the border tab. Now the border tab, there's lots and lots of options and information. So the first thing is, it might be you say, well actually I don't want any border. Not a problem. If I click on that, the border's gone. But in this case, there's a couple of other things I just want to share with you. So it could be that you want the margin, that's the distance, to be much greater, or of course you could come down much closer. But in this case, I'm going to stick with 6. Now it might be you say, well, actually I don't want the rounded corners, I want something much more angular. But in this case I will do. If I really wanted to spread the distance out between my letters, I could do, and then I could actually have them as individual separate letters. I'm not going to do that. And again, you might recognize this motif if you've been elsewhere in the software, and this is basically giving me different options in the border. So it could be that I just want a very simple running stitch, or you could choose a motif stitch. Now the default in the mySewnet software is always this star. And if you click on the Options tab, that allows you to choose a whole variety of stitches. Now one thing that I particularly like about this is if you've got a Husqvarna or Pfaff sewing machines, you can actually open that up and this will be virtually all the stitches on most of our machines. So for instance, it might be, let's say I'm working on a Husqvarna machine. This is going to be a project where I'm perhaps combining it with some decorative patchwork, where I have used something like this decorative stitch, which I think is very cute. So this is the Husqvarna Viking vintage stitch, stitch 24. I'm going to click OK. And you can see that's combined in there. But in the case of the example I'm working on today, I am going to go universal, and I am going to choose flower and leaves 2, and I am going to go for stitch number 9, which is this little leaf pattern here. And then when I click OK, you can see I've got this flower line all the way around there, and I kind of like it because it fits in with the foliage on those 2 decorative letters that I've chosen. So again, let's talk a bit more about what's happening on the tab. And again, you might find some of these icons familiar if you've had any experience of working with, elsewhere in the mySewnet embroidery software. So we have a tab here that says Add Applique. So if I click on this, you can see that it's added basically an applique in there. Now it might be you say, well, that's okay, but I'm not sure if I want it to go on that colour. Let me actually talk a bit more about how you can be very specific. So if I click Select Fabric, the default is always the quick colour, and that allows you to just choose some basic colours in here. You can also go with some themed colours in here, but it might be that, for instance, you're working on a project and you know that, for instance, you have some purple fabric that you're going to be using in your applique, and you just want to have a look at what those threads are going to look like. You can say, okay, there we go. But let me show you something else within the software that you might find interesting. Instead of having the quick colour radio button clicked, I am going to click on the fabric button, and if I come down to here, this gives me some fabric options. And so there are all sorts of patterns actually already in the program that you can access, and I'm actually going to go for this sort of snake skin pattern. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click OK, and you can see it over here. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is, in actual fact, it might be that you haven't got this fabric. Of course you haven't got it, but what you then can do is you can actually click this button here. You can send this design to your printer, where if you have iron-on transfer paper, you can then have it printed on there, and then you can print the transfer onto your fabric for your applique. That makes it totally unique. So I'm then going to click OK on that. And you can see that actually this is really becoming a really unique quite special piece of work. So it might be that you say, well, I'm not actually 100% sure with that colour. What I'm going to do is, if I click on this, I can actually change. Here's my colour selection box, and it might be that you say, well, actually I want something perhaps a little bit stronger. You can choose your thread charts. If you go show all thread ranges and click on that arrow, that's going to give you all the main thread manufacturers on there, but I'm just going to click off that. Don't need to do that. I'm on Robson Anton at the moment, but if I scroll down, that would allow me to perhaps go with this sort of chestnut colour. If you know your thread colour, you can always actually type the number in there off the shade card, and I am going to click OK. And there you go, you can see that it's actually changed the colour. And so at this point, I'm happy with this. I'm going to click Finish. And here it is in my hoop in the software. It's kind of ready to go, but you can see over here we've got an awful lot of colour changes. So let me show you how I would suggest we can actually reduce that down. If you click on the home page and we go to Combine, if we click Fix as Stitches, then we can go back to Combine, Combine All, and then we can do a colour sort. And you can see that that's really reduced the number of colour changes. There are a lot because we've got these decorative letters in here that do have many different colours on there. And at that point I can then go Send to mySewnet or do File Export. And if you're thinking, goodness me, that is complicated, it doesn't have to be. Let me show you. You can see there's a much simpler monogram where I've just used one typeface the whole through, no applique, and just left the satin border. You can see how simple that will then be to stitch out. If you found this an interesting film, please like us and subscribe to our channel. Happy sewing!